to try to justify an intervention and seize the great wealth that Venezuela has as oil, gas, gold, water resources, bio-natural resources, resources that have been cherished historically by hegemonic power. One of the worst lies that have been made against Venezuela is to pretend to say that Venezuela is a country of drug traffickers and that the government of Venezuela are drug traffickers. That's why we have decided to present the real figures. Where are the drug trafficking relations? Where's the production of drugs? Where do we find the real routes of drug trafficking of different types of illegal substances? The lawful framework that must accompany the fight and international struggle against drug trafficking, as it is the Convention on Psychotropic Substances of the UN, the Convention of the UN against illicit traffic of drugs, and the Convention for the Prevention of Illegal Drugs. There is a law framework that implies the collaboration, cooperation, and aid among countries to face the international drug trafficking crime that must also be carried out according to the national international law framework for justice and police in their different organizations and jurisdictions. In any case, it is foreseen the military action to repress, sanction, and persecute a crime that are categorized as a common crime, as it is drug trafficking. This is so because we know very well what they pretend today regarding Venezuela. The deployment of ships in front of Venezuela that aim to attack the sovereignty of our country, to carry out an armed action against the Venezuelan people, in the face of which the Venezuelan truth must come first. The first is to go to the sources, to data, to statistics that come from specialized agencies within the United States, as the United Nations and international organizations that have been doing follow-ups and studies on the subject. Yearly report of drugs of the United Nations against drug trafficking and against drugs and crime. The first report came in 1999, and we decided to bring them all from 1999 until 2025. Year 1999, 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004, 6, 7, 8, 9, 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013, 14, 15, 16, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, amid the COVID-19 pandemic, 2021, 2022, 23, 24, and the current year, 2025. During these 27 years in a row, Venezuela does not show as a relevant country that has to do with illegal drugs. Venezuela, I will say it again, in its category, international category, is not a country relevant regarding drug trafficking, nor crimes related to drug trafficking. It is in all these reports from 1999 until 2025. Now, whom show up mainly in these reports? The first is to highlight is that drug trafficking constitutes within the illegal funds at the world as the second most profitable activity. The first profitable activity is organized crime, fraud, and corruption, and the second more profitable activity is drug trafficking. But who are the main actors that take part, that in a way are involved? Because in the end, organized crime crosses with what has to do with drug trafficking. So it's a great international criminal organization of which Venezuela, fortunately, is not a part of. And we say this with pride, because Venezuela has shown truly, not only in our figures, but also in what is referred, because you know this, you have studied in the mirrors figures. It's not only what Venezuela says of what it sees, but the destination, the countries that are the destination, the final destination, their statistics coincide with ours. This information has been shared by the Vice President Diosdado Cabello, by Padrino Lopez as well. When we go to the official maps, the routes of cocaine, only 5% aims to go through Venezuelan territory. And of that 5%, we have a reach of 70% seizure and destruction of that drug that intended to cross Venezuelan territory, that is submitted to great pressures due to the long border with the main producer of cocaine in the world. There we can see that Colombia is the first country in terms of production of cocaine in the world. Peru is the second, and Bolivia is the third. What does this mean? That Venezuela, firstly, is not a country that produces cocaine. Secondly, it is not an important route, a relevant route in the export of cocaine. There you have the three producers: Colombia, Peru, Bolivia. And now, let's go and see the routes. The routes of cocaine, 87% exits from Colombia, from Ecuador, to go to the United States. 8% that goes through Guajira Colombiana, and 5% that tries to go through Venezuelan territory. There it is. So which is the main route for the export of cocaine? Very clearly it's the Pacific. If an international coordinated activity with the involved countries were to take place, truly the gathering of forces, the ships, should be on the Pacific. If they truly did not want that drug to reach the United States, if that is their true intention, to stop the arrival of cocaine to the United States, that unfortunately faces a real issue of public health due to the high figures of people dead due to overdose. It is not Venezuela, the one responsible, nor the route for that drug to arrive in the United States. Venezuela, on the contrary, has given an extraordinary management, an extraordinary development to stop the pressure that comes from producing countries so that this territory does not turn into a territory for the transit of drugs or the harvesting of drugs. So far this year, over 56 tons have been destroyed. When we compare this to what happened when the DEA existed in Venezuela, and without the DEA, we know we do it better than when the DEA was here in Venezuela, this U.S. agency that specializes in drugs. We know to do it better. That's what the figures say. We seize more drugs. We have more coordinated work to achieve a clear objective where countries overall have the interest to face this, and that it is done in accordance to the law. Now, the United States. What happens when that drug reaches the United States? We have journalists here from the States. There are journalists that cover U.S. sources. What happens with that drug once it reaches the United States? Be it cocaine, fentanyl, methamphetamine, marijuana, no, because it is produced in U.S. soil. The United States today, they have their own supply of marijuana, and from the 75 to present days, its rate of addiction increased from 1% to 15%. Today, the cannabis, the marijuana that is produced in the United States, is stronger and more addictive, and is produced in U.S. soil, not in Venezuela. In Venezuela, we don't produce cannabis. We don't produce any drugs. So, a country that, on the contrary, is very relevant with everything that has to do with illicit drugs. The first has to do with the financial system in the States. 85% of profits of this illegal business stays in the United States. And this was said by a report of the United Nations and ratified in the year 2025. There it is, the study. The financial illegal flows that resulted from drug trafficking and other international actions, 85% of those profits remain in the United States. Where? In their financial system. Who take part in this? Well, this is something really big. You have the financial system. So we must say that in the year 2009, in the financial crisis, the recovery came thanks to drug trafficking money in the U.S. banks. Do not believe that it was the Federal Reserve. It was the Federal Reserve thanks to the drug trafficking money. We have those people referred to as the brokers that are in charge of the distribution through all the territory, and transportation companies that cover the whole U.S. territory. We have the drug gangs that are the one in charge of the microtransactions, and it's what currently is destroying the U.S. society. We have the drug truckers, who are the ones that control the whole transportation of drugs through different routes. And we also have what we call the drug saxons, which are the wealthy white people that that sell drugs among politicians in high-level parties that also allow, if I'm allowed to recall the name of Jeffrey Epstein. These are all systems to guarantee in the U.S. for the cycle since drugs enter the United States territory, and it's good to say that the fentanyl that arrives in the U.S. from Mexico, it all enters through legal ports. Once the drugs enter the United States, once it is transported and distributed through these different chains of gangs and truckers, the money is laundered in the banks. Look at this data as well from the yearly World Drug Report of the United Nations. Organized crime generates $1.6 billion, of which drug trafficking, we had already seen this, takes the second place in the list of illegal activities with a figure over $476 billion in a year.
Esto representa el 0.8% del PIB.
This represents 0.8% of the GDP of the U.S. economy. And this is not said by Venezuela. It is said by the international organizations specialized on the subject. The size of money that is laundered in criminal activities and drug trafficking in the United States is equivalent, and we can see the whole illegal activity, 2.7% of the U.S. GDP. You can imagine the size. Venezuela knows this, that we are in a process of progressive recovery with self-sacrifice, where each point of the GDP is a pride. There is very quick, thanks to the illicit activity of drug trafficking. Now, what are the connections? How is this money laundered? 57% of suspicious activities of money laundering on fentanyl is carried out through traditional banking operations. It will be easier for the United States to face and persecute money laundering in the United States than to send ships to attack a nation of peace, a people of peace, as it is Venezuela, unless their intentions are others, which are not to fight the illegal traffic of drugs. But if they truly wanted to face it, they have so many tools in their own countries to tackle money laundering. They have so many possibilities with health policies to heal their population that die due to overdose because there's no one to attend to them with rehab policies. And I would say, from the economic point of view, it's cheaper and more efficient that you face this, the money laundering, that you have policies against drug consumption, that this craziness and dangerous show that they are doing in Venezuela and the Caribbean. Other data, U.S. banks receive historical fines after admitting their involvement with money laundering, after being involved with drug trafficking activities. The United States has become the world epicenter of drug trafficking money laundering. That's why it is a very relevant country when it comes to drug trafficking. A former director of the UN Office Against Drugs said that in 2009, this is what I just said, that drug trafficking money saved the world of the financial crisis in 2009. There's a lot of hypocrisy, of double standards, of political instrumentalization and geopolitics in this issue to invade, to bring about regime change in countries that are not aligned. So I believe the United States has a lot of aspects on which it must come truthful. If they really want, as they say, they are very concerned for U.S. citizens that died due to overdose. Only in year 2024, over 110,000 people died due to overdose. If they truly care, they have a lot of tasks to carry out within the United States to correct and solve. A lot. They do not need to see to other places because today the United States is the most relevant country when it comes to drug trafficking. It is the most relevant country for its financial system, its logistic networks, for the weapons that are provided to the drug cartels in Mexico. In 10 years, estimates say $2 million, $3 million of illegal arms trade with drug cartels in Mexico. Think about what it meant, Plan Colombia 1, Plan Colombia 2. Over $100 million in taxes, in U.S. taxes that were directed to fight and eliminate illegal crops of drugs in Colombia. And it turns out that they turned it into the main producer of cocaine in the world. From its genesis, this story of fighting drug trafficking has been filled with double standards and lies. That's what allowed them to put U.S. military bases in Colombian state, neighbors of Venezuela. But it's not that they did not burn one single leaf of coca leaf, it's that they extended the hectares of crops of coca leaves. Thanks to the role of the United States in Plan Colombia 1, Plan Colombia 2. Thanks to that, they made of Colombia the first producer of cocaine in the world. So we also have the report of the DEA. I don't like to quote the DEA due to the large connections that the DEA has with drug cartels, but it's an official document from the United States. In that official document of the United States, they acknowledge what I just said, that money laundering happens mainly in the United States. We only know this in the financial system. They also talk about that they make use of cryptocurrencies, of casinos, of the real estate agent sector. That's what the DEA says. They admit that the drug cartels from Mexico operate in all 50 states of the United States, and they have identified all the routes that are used to trade the drugs, but they don't have the capacity, the report says, to fight it. There's a report that talks about the death due to overdose. Who are the ones responsible for the death of overdose? Are the Venezuelans that have nothing to do with this in this horrible history. And if we had something to do, it would be, and if we had to do something to that, we would have activated all the mechanisms of cooperation, of aid, on how to help each other internationally, as we do with some European countries here in the Caribbean, for example. So we must put things where they belong. It is proven. Venezuela is not a country relevant regarding drug trafficking. Why? Because Venezuela is a country free of crops. It's not a country that
no es un país
hoards
de tránsito
drugs.
de
It's not a country for
Porque
drug
el que intenta
transit,
pasar por acá
because who tries to go through our territory
sabe que
knows
va a ser condenado
that
y
is
perseguido.
going to be condemned and
Ya más de
persecuted.
402
Over
aeronaves
402
narcotráfico han sido
drug trafficking
derribadas
planes have been
por los
shot
organismos de
down
seguridad venezolanos.
by the security agencies of Venezuela.
¿Cuántos laboratorios
How many
destruidos?
laboratories have been destroyed?
Pero así, llega un laboratorio, inmediatamente destruido.
As soon as a laboratory is found, it's immediately destroyed. They don't have time to drink
Igual para el
soda.
tránsito.
The same thing happens for
No es un
transport.
país de tránsito
It's not a country
de droga
of
para
transport
los
of
Estados Unidos,
drugs
no lo es.
towards the United States.
Y no es un país donde el consumo sea un problema de
And it's
salud
not a
pública.
country where drug consumption
¿qué
is
sí
an issue of
Venezuela?
public health.
Es una referencia
But what
internacional,
is Venezuela?
antihegemónica,
Venezuela is
imperialista,
an international
anticolonialista,
reference,
que como
anti-colonialist,
bien
anti-hegemonic,
fue determinado durante el gobierno de Barack Hussein Obama, la
that,
política exterior de Venezuela es una amenaza a la seguridad nacional
that
de
during
los
the
Estados Unidos.
Obama administration, the foreign policy of Venezuela was determined to be a threat for the United States. That's where the story began in this
2014, bloqueo
timetable. In 2014, economic blockade. 2015, the Obama decree that considers Venezuela a threat to national security. To be able years later to be able to do all this, to be able to intervene the country.
la declaración del
Then
presidente
came the
Maduro y
declaration of
otros altos
President
funcionarios como
Maduro and other high officials as drug
Ellos van
traffickers.
tejiendo
They weave their narratives,
la narrativa, la falsa narrativa.
the false
Al
narrative,
igual que dijeron
the same
que
that,
había armas de
just like they
destrucción
say
masiva en Irak,
that there were
para
weapons of
intervenir
mass
en ese país,
destruction
para
in
invadir,
Iraq
para
to
robar su
intervene, to
petróleo.
invade, to steal
Esa es
their
la única
oil.
verdad.
That's the only truth.
Porque centenares
Because
de informes
hundreds of reports
especializados en la materia
specialized on the
determinaron
issue
que ahí no había
determined
armas
that
de
there were
destrucción
no
masiva.
weapons of mass destructions in Iraq, that it was an invention to
Y
invade
como
Iraq.
este invento,
And just as that was
o
invented,
eventos de falsa bandera,
or false flags events,
decenas en la historia de la
dozens in
humanidad,
history of humanity,
todas con un único fin,
all with
la
one
intervención, la
purpose:
invasión, la
intervention,
ocupación,
invasion,
el cambio
occupation,
de régimen,
regime change,
por razones geopolíticas,
for geopolitical reasons.
por razones geopolíticas, que es lo que está
For
ocurriendo.
geopolitical reasons, that is what is happening right now.
Luego agarran una organización criminal que
Then
fue
they take a criminal organization that was strongly faced here in Venezuela, as it was Tren Aragua, and then they designate it as an international, transnational organization. Then they blow up a ship. These are the commodities for to violate international law, because the true problem that humanity has today is that the United States and its satellite governments undermine and violate international law. They do not respect anything. There's no limits. Lies is the only imposition, and go across the planet as if it belongs to them. This year, remember the law of foreign enemy, a very old law, no longer being used. They bring it about, take away the dust, and then they apply it to consider Venezuela a foreign enemy. Then Venezuela has nothing to do with the death of its citizens due to overdose. But when we go and review the routes, we know cocaine does not go through Venezuela. It's through the Pacific. Those ships that today aim to threaten Venezuela, they should be on the Pacific if they truly wanted to face drug trafficking and prevent the drug and cocaine to arrive in the United States. They should be there. In a mistaken concept also, which is to use warships to face a common crime. Well, it seems that they have a GPS issue because they are where they are not supposed to be. They should calibrate their GPS and go to the Pacific if they don't want cocaine to arrive in the United States. When we go to the countries destination countries of cocaine and its mere images, Venezuela is also not there.
No es un país de tránsito, de fuente de tránsito ni de recepción, Venezuela. Cero. No existe Venezuela.
Venezuela does not exist on this issue.
¿Quién es hoy el principal
Who is today
exportador de cocaína?
the main exporter of cocaine in the world?
No es Venezuela.
It is not Venezuela. Once again, they are mistaken. It is Ecuador. Marco Rubio was recently in Ecuador. I don't know if he went there to check on their business, what he went to do there, but Ecuador is the main exporter of cocaine in the world today. It is in the last report of the Customs International Organization. Why Ecuador? Because it's the main exporter of banana to the world, and it has beautiful routes and amazing containers to put the cocaine shipment. Their president, they say that through Ecuador 70% of cocaine goes through their country that goes to the world. And this is said by their own president, that is also partner of one of the banana companies that ships cocaine to Europe and the United States. The same story with Álvaro Uribe, partner of drug traffickers. The same as Juan Guaidó. Pictures with drug traffickers. That's why for them Venezuela is very important. Firstly, due to its geographic position, they need the Venezuelan territory to transport drugs. And in all the conspiracies to overthrow the legitimate government of Venezuela, drug trafficking from Colombia and Ecuadorian drug trafficking and the Albanese mafia that came to care for the export of cocaine in Ecuador are behind. You see that the story is another one. You were told a story that was not real. The true story is very different. So here you have it. Cocaine and banana industry in Ecuador. See how they both increase. Seizures of cocaine in banana shipments. The main Ecuador, a drug state. That's why the electoral fraud in Ecuador. They cannot surrender the political spaces. They are under control of drug trafficking. And that is why President Petro today, his life is threatened due to drug traffickers. And that is why they want to overthrow the government of Venezuela. They want to change it like this. To control this territory and surrender it to drug trafficking. We knew this following the agreements of Maria Corina Machado and Juan Guaidó with drug trafficking groups in Colombia, and this has come out to the public. We cannot forget that Operation Herion, where drug trafficking from Colombia had a very important participation. They need Venezuela for drug trafficking. An extraordinary business where 85% of the profits remain in the United States, and they need Venezuela for its energy reserves, for its oil, gas, for its mineral reserves, its gold, iron, for its water reserves. They are desperate, and that is why President Nicolás Maduro has activated the Venezuelan people and the Bolivarian militia, all people, men and women, regardless of age. We are on alert to defend the peace of the country, to defend our territorial integrity. Yesterday, President, as Commander-in-Chief of our Bolivarian National Armed Forces, rose the Operation Readiness, increasing to over 25,000 military personnel to safeguard the binational area, so drug trafficking has more pressure to not come to our territory, because we need to guarantee peace. and above all,
desmontar estas patrañas.
to dismantle these
Bueno,
lies.
otro tipo de drogas.
And other kinds of drugs,
Anfetaminas,
amphetamines,
miren,
methamphetamines.
¿dónde está
See,
Venezuela?
where is
Blanquito.
Venezuela? Where is
Esas drogas
Venezuela?
sintéticas tampoco
Completely white.
pasan
Those
ni se
synthetic
producen en Venezuela.
drugs are not produced nor come through Venezuela either.
Cero cocaína, cero anfetamina,
Zero cocaine, zero methamphetamines,
fentanilo,
zero
heroína.
fentanyl, zero heroin.
Tampoco está Venezuela.
Venezuela is not here on the heroin chart.
Venezuela no es un país relevante en
Venezuela is not
materia
a
de
relevant
internacional de droga
issue
ilícita.
when it comes to
Aplauso
illegal drug
para
trafficking.
nuestro pueblo, aplauso para nuestros organismos de seguridad
Congratulations to our people, our security agencies that constantly
este terrible
face
crimen
this
internacional.
international crime.
Ahora, ¿cómo puede existir el
Now,
cartel de los soles?
how can the cartels of the soles exist if there is no drugs here, if there is no organization?
Una operación más de propaganda
Is
contra
another
Venezuela.
propaganda operation against Venezuela to criminalize the legitimate government of Venezuela.
Pero siempre se dice
But we always say it.
que la mentira tiene patas cortas.
We always say that a lie
Vuelvo sobre
has
el
very
informe
short
de
li-
ODEA.
a very short life. I go back to the DEA report, and I don't like to quote it, but it's an official report from the United States. The 2024-2025 report does not mention Venezuela. How could they, if we have nothing to do with it? Nor they mention the fake Los Soles cartel. What does this DEA highlights as routes? Central America, Puerto Rico, and the Dominican Republic. Venezuela is not here. And most of its seizures in the United States were in California, confirming that the main route of drugs are in the Pacific. You must calibrate and fix GPS. Not Venezuela, it's the Pacific. If you truly want to be efficient and put an end to the consumption of cocaine and other drugs in the United States. Other aspects touched by this report points to Colombia, Peru, and Bolivia as the main producers of cocaine. We know this. Venezuela is not shown here either. They also mention Mexico, El Salvador, Honduras, Guatemala, Puerto Rico, again Dominican Republic as key routes towards the United States. Venezuela is not mentioned here either. In conclusion, Venezuela is not pointed out as a producer or distributor or a transit country or involved in money laundering in the DEA report. Do you realize that it's a great false, a great lie? It's all lies that with the only intent of attacking Venezuela to secure a geographic territory, to make it easy for drug trafficking routes, and to seize the immense energy reserve of a country. And they believe that to undermine our Bolivarian internationalism, anti-imperialist, anti-colonialist spirit of love for the people and of profound love for international legality. Legacy of the doctrines of our father Simón Bolívar. This is the truth of Venezuela. Enough is enough, so many lies. Enough of trash talks, I should say, because it comes to a point where citizens get tired of so much trash, and we are angry in the face of such trash, and we are ready for the call that President made, calling to the enlistment our Bolivarian militia. We are ready to defend Venezuela, to defend peace, to defend the national territorial integrity, and to defend the future of our sons and daughters, to defend social happiness and the economic growth. We are ready. Venezuela is ready. And we wait that all these lies come to an end and that the U.S. government acts seriously and restraint in fulfillment with the law of its own country and international law. Thank you very much.
Aquí escuchamos declaraciones de la vicepresidenta ejecutiva de la República, doctora Delcy Rodríguez, que presentaba documentos que